Hey, econ warriors, you financial freedom fighters, and all you folks out there just trying to make sense of this economic dumpster fire, welcome back to Boss Economics World, where we rip the mask off government incompetence, expose economic lunacy, and call out the suits in Washington for tanking your wallet, your dreams, and, let's face it, the entire economy. I'm your host, the guy who's just as fed up as you are, and today, oh boy, do we have a doozy of a story to unpack. Buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into the latest economic train wreck courtesy of, yep, you guessed it, your friendly neighborhood government. Let's do this. Folks, remember the good old days, way back in early 2024, when everyone was buzzing about the so-called Trump bump? Yeah, the stock market was riding high, unemployment was low, and the economy was humming along like a finely tuned Maserati. Fast forward to today, and it looks like that Maserati's been sideswiped by a government-issued clown car. Concerns are mounting, alarm bells are ringing, and the data? Oh, it's flashing yellow like a traffic light in a hurricane. Google searches for recession have spiked, up 78% in the past month alone, according to Google Trends, and Wall Street's top forecasters are now predicting the U.S. economy, once the golden child of global growth, will shrink in Q1 2025. That's right, folks, we're talking negative GDP growth. A recession. A Trump slump. Now, before we go any further, let's give credit where credit is due. The U.S. economy was in pretty darn good shape not too long ago. GDP growth in 2023 clocked in at a solid 2.5%, unemployment was hovering around a near-historic low of 3.7%, and consumer confidence was riding high. But now? Oh, now it's a different story. And who do we have to thank for this mess? You guessed it, the geniuses in Washington, with their latest brainchild, sweeping tariffs, mass terminations across the federal government, many of which, by the way, might just be illegal, and a whole heap of uncertainty that's got businesses, investors, and regular folks like you and me running for the hills. But wait, hold the phone, here comes Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, swooping in like a superhero in a cheap suit, telling us not to worry, that this is all just a period of transition. 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 Folks, if this is a transition, then the Titanic was just making a quick pit stop on its way to New York. Let's not kid ourselves, this isn't a transition, it's a full-blown economic faceplant, and it's got the government's fingerprints all over it. Let's start with the big one, tariffs. Oh, tariffs, the gift that keeps on giving, to our economic rivals, that is. For those of you new to the game, tariffs are basically taxes on imported goods, and Donald Trump's latest round of tariffs, slapped on everything from Chinese electronics to Mexican auto parts, are the economic equivalent of throwing a Molotov cocktail into a fireworks factory. Sure, the idea is to protect American jobs and bring manufacturing back home, but here's the dirty little secret, it doesn't work. Never has, never will. Don't believe me? Let's look at the data. Back in 2018, Trump rolled out his first big wave of tariffs, targeting $250 billion worth of Chinese goods. The result? According to a 2023 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBR, those tariffs cost American consumers and businesses an extra $40 billion a year, while failing to create any significant net increase in manufacturing jobs. In fact, the U.S. manufacturing sector lost 1,000 jobs per month on average in 2019, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. And now, in 2025, Trump's back at it, with tariffs that are even broader and more aggressive, 25% on Mexican imports, 10% on Chinese goods, you name it. The Peterson Institute for International Economics, PIE, estimates these new tariffs could shave 1.3% off U.S. GDP by the end of 2025, while jacking up consumer prices by an average of 2.5%. Translation: your grocery bill, your car payments, your kids' school supplies, all going up, up, up. And here's the kicker, businesses hate uncertainty, and tariffs are uncertainty on steroids. Just look at the latest data from the Institute for Supply Management, ISM. Their manufacturing PMI, a key indicator of industrial activity, dropped to 46.5 in November 2024, a reading below 50 signals contraction. Why? Because companies are freezing investments, hoarding cash, and bracing for the tariff storm. Meanwhile, global supply chains, already battered by the pandemic and geopolitical tensions, are getting another swift kick in the teeth. Just ask companies like Ford, which announced last month it's slashing 4,000 jobs in its North American operations, citing rising input costs and trade policy uncertainty. Thanks, Uncle Sam. But wait, there's more. As if tariffs weren't enough, the Trump administration has decided to go full Marie Antoinette on the federal workforce. Mass terminations, tens of thousands of government employees shown the door, many without clear legal justification, are sending shockwaves through the economy. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, government workers. Who cares? They just push paper all day anyway. Oh, my sweet summer child, let me break it down for you. Federal employees aren't just faceless bureaucrats, they're consumers, taxpayers, and, most importantly, economic stabilizers. When you fire 50,000 of them, many of whom are middle-class workers with mortgages, car loans, and kids to feed, you're not just cutting waste, you're gutting demand. According to the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, every dollar spent on federal wages generates $1.50 in economic activity. So, when you slash those wages, you're not just hurting those workers, you're hurting the barista who makes their coffee, the mechanic who fixes their car, and the teacher who educates their kids. Ripple effects, folks, Economics 101. And let's talk about the legality of these terminations. Reports from the Government Accountability Office, GAO, suggest that many of these firings violate civil service protections, meaning the government could be on the hook for billions in lawsuits and back pay. Just last week, the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of 10,000 terminated workers, claiming the moves were arbitrary and capricious. If they win, and legal experts say they've got a strong case, taxpayers could be left footing the bill. So much for fiscal responsibility, huh? Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Tariffs, mass terminations, legal battles, put it all together, and what do you get? Uncertainty. And folks, uncertainty is the silent killer of economies. Businesses don't invest when they don't know what's coming next. Consumers don't spend when they're worried about their jobs. And investors? Oh, they run for the hills faster than you can say, Dow Jones. Just look at the numbers. The CBOE Volatility Index, VIX, Wall Street's so-called fear gauge, spiked to 25 in December 2024, its highest level since the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, consumer confidence, as measured by the Conference Board, plummeted to 95.3 in November 2024, down from 105.6 just 6 months ago. And corporate investment? It's drying up faster than a puddle in the Sahara, with U.S. capital expenditures falling 3.7% year-over-year, per the latest Commerce Department data. So, let's connect the dots. We've got tariffs tanking trade, mass terminations gutting demand, and uncertainty paralyzing growth. And who's behind it all? You guessed it, the government. Folks, this isn't just a Trump problem, it's a systemic problem. Governments love to meddle, to tinker, to fix things that aren't broken, and in the process, they break everything. From the Federal Reserve's flip-flopping on interest rates to Congress's inability to pass a coherent budget, Washington is the architect of this disaster. And don't let Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent fool you with his transition nonsense. The data doesn't lie. The IMF just downgraded its 2025 U.S. growth forecast to 1.4%, down from 2.7% 6 months ago, citing, you guessed it, policy uncertainty and trade disruptions. Meanwhile, the OECD warns that a full-blown U.S. recession could drag global growth down to 2.8%, the lowest since the 2008 financial crisis. This isn't a transition, it's a travesty. So, what do we do, folks? How do we fight back against this government-induced economic apocalypse? First, we demand accountability. Call your representatives, flood their inboxes, and tell them to stop playing politics with your paycheck. Second, we educate ourselves. Read the data, question the spin, and don't let the suits in Washington pull the wool over your eyes. And third, we protect ourselves. Diversify your investments, build your savings, and don't bet on the government to save you, because, folks, they're the ones who got us into this mess in the first place. Here at Boss Economics World, we're not just here to complain, though, let's be honest, it feels pretty darn good. We're here to empower you, to arm you with the facts, and to fight back against the economic lunacy that's threatening our future. So, until next time, keep your wallets close, your skepticism closer, and remember, the government might be the problem, but you, my friends, are the solution. This is Boss Economics World, signing off. Stay sharp, stay savvy, and stay free.